Good morning. Here we are at the book club, and of course, my cat is making Claudia's dog want to go play. So I just got distracted. Anyway, welcome to the Energy Healing for Animals book club, and we have lots of fun ahead today. And we'll give it a minute so that people can join on and get caught up. I've had a fuse broke, so we've been madly dashing around making sure that we have electricity. And so anyway, here we are. And I just got back from Houston and Tennessee. I taught animal communication at the Gentle Barn in Tennessee, and then I spoke in Houston, and then I taught at Body, Mind, and Soul. Taught EFT and animal communication. We had so much fun. So I have an animal communication fun hangover. It was just really fun. Lots of new people, and hopefully some of the people will show up today. Is anybody on?
Yeah. Hi, Carrie. Kat Doyle is watching. Wait, there's one comment already.
Is anybody on?
Oh, hi. Sorry about that. That's my phone.
Is anybody on?
Okay.
On?
I know, right? Cindy Coleman says hi from Dallas.
Hello.
Colette says aloha from Florida. Michelle Shell says hi, everyone. Cheryl Benson says hello.
Hello.
I am watching.
You're watching? Okay, good. I'm so glad. So today we're going to talk about energetic life in the animal world. But before we do that, I'm going to introduce myself in case you're new to me or you come on later and watch and you've never seen any of my my Facebook Lives. So my name is Joan Ranquet. I'm an animal communicator, energy healer, TEDx speaker, author, and founder of Communication with All Life University. And I've been teaching for 21 years, and this is the 10th year of my anniversary, 10th anniversary of my school, Communication with All Life University. And my school is, I always say that if you look at a peace sign, like a third of it is animal communication, a third of it is energy healing, and then a third of it is, we're going to do more and more, we're building out nature and wildlife. But the fundamental thing that I think you need when you're doing energy healing or working in nature with wildlife is animal communication. So it's always at the core. And it's my first love. But that said, energy healing has always been there for me. And so with the school and as a 10-year anniversary, my mission has always been to empower others to deeply connect with all life so that together we can give voice to those who can't speak for themselves and ultimately heal the planet. And when I looked at it this year, I thought, what would be kind of measurable to know that I'm doing that? So I thought, well, I will connect with 1 million, I'll help 1 million animals. And in order to do that, I can't do it alone. So I've been creating this delicious tribe. And more, you're part of my mission as I am hopefully part of your mission in just getting things, really raising the frequency on the planet so that we can all have a better world, and making it better for them. So that said, and we're going to really kind of jump. I can't even talk this morning. We're going to dump right in. We're going to jump right in. And I want to just say, I want to read from this. Actually, I want to read the quote. I always love to have a good quote at the beginning of every chapter. And this is one of my favorites. For the animals shall not be measured by man in a world older and more complete than ours. They move finished and complete, gifted with extensions of the senses we have lost or never attained. Living by our voices, we shall never hear. They are not brethren, they are not underlings, they are other nations caught with ourselves in the net of life and time, fellow prisoners of the splendor and travail of the earth. Henry Beston. And I love that because I really feel like that, even giving voice to them, right? Even giving voice to them is something that we have to get to that such a neutral place. And I feel like one of the things that's getting to that most neutral place is, my animal communication classes, and there's free classes here. We do a meditation where we move the mental, the physical, and the emotional out of the way. And, it's just a great practice to be in that, being able to move things out of the way so that you can stay neutral. And in staying neutral, we're able to make a better decision. And it really boils down to one of the most important things that I always say. They have the superpower of instinct, and we have the superpower of logic. But when we're a mess, when we're chaotic, we're not in logic. And their entire world is based on emotion. When you think about fight or flight, fight, flight, fright, all of it is, it's very important to recognize how much their world is emotional. So, and I know that's of course, I just bought the other day the National Geographic special thing. Do you want to go? Can you go grab that? Did you see it?
Yeah, I've seen it. I've come this close to buying it.
Well, I bought it because it's an interesting moment in time because.
It talks. Yeah.
So look at what it says: Secrets of Animal Communication. Now it's a little misleading because it's really about the scientific version. Behavior, but it still is. But it recognizes some people that were naturalists and people that really brought forth the idea that animals have feelings. And the idea that we need science to prove it is, it's ludicrous on the one hand, but I always say that science and religion had a great stake in keeping the idea down that they do have feelings, because in religion, they certainly sacrificed animals for their own purposes. And in science, of course, we know animal testing, all of that. So if somebody actually believed that they didn't have feelings, it would be far easier, to do the things that people have done. So there's been a great stake in keeping this concept down, but there's no turning back now, right? And anyway, so their fight or flight mechanism is truly... it's energetic and it's emotional. It's based on fear, fear versus safety. So, the first paragraph, I'm just going to read it only because it's such a unique thing. I used to take people on dolphin trips. I took people for about 8 years, 2 trips a year, back to back, and so I've spent a lot of time in the water, and I really miss being in the water like that. But anyway, if you could swim to the right spot in the ocean, you would not only hear the clicks and high-pitched whistles of the dolphin community, but also feel the web of their unique energy. The community of dolphins whose orbit you have entered, called a pod, exists as a unit. It doesn't matter if they are miles apart from one another or swimming playfully together. They're still a connected group, sharing a web of energy and a profound connection among the pod's individuals, family members, and the pod as a whole. And so when I think about this idea that they are so connected, we can see it in everything, whether it's in, a herd of antelope out in the Serengeti or a herd of horses. Our own herds are all connected. I have a great story, actually, to share about that. But, we can see, don't let me forget to tell the story about Doc. It might be in here. But what is so important is to watch energy in motion. Watch nature, and you really get a sense of energy. And then we can watch, our own animals at home. And when we get to that neutral place, and even in observance, we're going to see stuff we didn't notice before, we didn't recognize before. But if we think about the fact that their entire survival is based on this concept of fight or flight, then we can really understand even how our animals are first responders to our energy. And it doesn't mean that they're mirroring us, or that they are, or that we're doing something bad. Because I think it comes down to really recognizing our own energy and really wanting to be operating from a place of setting up safety. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So anyway, when we think about that these animals are connected through their herds, their packs, their pods, so then we can recognize how we are just missing the boat, how we have completely missed the boat on our interconnectedness. And I really believe that, like in that first quote, and just what I've seen as far as from an animal communication standpoint, I think when we learned language, we lost the opportunity to feel into all of this. And then our superpower of logic is getting in our way, because we're so up here and not in our hearts, and not feeling into the community, not feeling into, hey, what's going on? I had, in my group last weekend, I had the privilege of having a 10-year-old and an 88-year-old in the class. And, there was a time, and I think about this all the time, there was a time when communities were so much more connected. And now, with our technology, we're logic, but not in a way that's going to save us, right? And so we could get into real trouble. And I always say that, logic has come in handy to build skyscrapers and great push-up bras, but that doesn't mean that it's helping us in any way, shape, or form, because we are at the destruction level of this planet is at an all-time high. And the idea that we've encroached upon all of nature, and then they are a nuisance in our community when the coyotes are in the neighborhood, is beyond anything I can comprehend. So anyway, that's that. So I talked a lot in my last book about one mind, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But I want to say something share this story here with you about something that happened to me. And it's on page 35. So this is something that you've probably experienced before, of walking into someone else's zone. So I live by myself, and I check on my horses late at night, and I do things. And there was one night I walked down, and I just had the chills. And this was in Carnation when I lived outside of Seattle, and so it's dark woods, and I had the chills. And I drove my car down to the barn, which would be like driving down to the hay shed, right? It's just not that, I was that scared. And I don't know why I didn't have a dog with me, but I know when I felt that feeling, I put the dogs in the house. And so I went and I checked on the horses, and then drove back up and ran into my house. And what I feel like happened, and I'll share a more elaborate story that's in here. So what I feel like, I feel like there was a cougar, a big cat, and it sensed me, and I sensed it, and it was scared. And I feel like I walked right into that fear and felt it. And so, another time, so has anybody ever experienced that where you've walked into that? Claudia, yeah. And you don't even know. Like, I will never have that verified, but I know in my heart of hearts it was a cougar that was walking through, and like all of a sudden here I come, and it went. So then there's another time that how I didn't have dogs with me, I don't know, but I had this back pasture that I used to call the fairy garden, and it was higher ground, and I would let my horses out there when it was muddy, and which in Seattle it rains a lot, so they were there through the winter. So I had to go repair fences, and if you know me, that means that I took hay twine and duct tape, and was hoping that I could borrow somebody's husband or something to really fix it later. But I had hay twine with me, so I was going out there. Claudia has seen my toolkit. It's that's it's just not my superpower. So anyway, I go out there, and all of a sudden, I'm hit with fear. I mean, I am hit like a ton of bricks with fear, and I stand there for a moment. I just stand still, and I think, what do I love to do when I'm with the dolphins? I'm like, I all of a sudden know, I know it's not mine, and I start to look around, and over there is a little fawn, a little baby deer, and then she's looking at someone else and looking at me, and looking at someone else and looking at me. So through the thick bushes, I see probably a 1-year-old or somebody not quite as young as that, but definitely not the mom. And so I did my whole thing that I do with the dolphins, which is I just start radiating out gratitude, appreciation, you're safe. And the next thing you know, I had the baby deer was so curious about me, and I became so safe, and it wasn't going to take the cues from the other one. It was on its own, and I swear to God, I became like a human maypole, and they started playing around me in the direction that I was sending the gratitude. And so for me, like, I knew that I walked into their web, and I felt it, and I was able to be part of it. And that's what I love to feel when I'm out. Like this morning, I was out really early, and they aren't that great, but I got pictures of a hawk sitting in a tree. I had some incredible hawk moments this morning of just again sending that, you're safe. Of course, my dogs chased it, but up until that point, I was very close. So, we can have these moments where we're part of that web, of someone else's web. We're actually all part of a giant web, right? And that's how we can move in between worlds. But that sense is in our homes also with our dogs and cats. And so when we get into that zone, morphic resonance, then we can really shift our household, and communication becomes easy because we're in a zone with them.
You said you wanted me to remind you about Doc.
Yeah. And I wonder, has anyone answered whether they've had that feeling where they've walked into somebody else's...
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I get it in the back of my neck.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the Doc story is in... Yeah, it's in next week's, but I'm going to tell it anyway. Just because it just shows... and some animals, they have superpowers, like echolocation. I have a funny story about that too when I was working on this. So, okay. Has anyone else? Okay. So one of the, yeah, that web is so big, and again, I'll tell it probably it's in next week's, but it's worth sharing this week to prove what I'm talking about. So one day I had 3 horses at the time, and I had a friend living on the property in a trailer, and she had a horse there named Doc. So we had a herd of 4, and it was 23 acres. So, we had a lot of, the horses were out and they moved together all day long, and except for if we were riding. So, Kelly didn't ride that much, but she had started trail riding Doc, so she would be taking my property. So one morning, Kelly said, I'm going off to, off on the trails. And you have to remember, this is the thickest woods on the planet in Seattle, outside of Seattle. I mean, it is just like, it's almost rainforest. In fact, this particular forest had been a Weyerhaeuser. It was cut down, so it had been a rainforest, and it was completely cut down. Then it was replanted. So there were stumps that were thousands of years old on my property, but there were trees that were only probably 30 years old, 40 years old, but they were huge and it was thick. So if you can't see, like we were all on 20 acres, you can't see your neighbor. So anyway, she leaves, and I go into the house to do something for a while, and then I was going to have a lesson. So I went down, my horse trainer showed up, I went down to ride, and as I was going to go catch the horses, they were racing around and around and around and around and around and around and around. And this never happens, but I could not catch the horses. My trainer couldn't catch the horse. There was no trick in the world. They didn't care about the bucket full of grain. There was nothing that was going to catch the horses. So my trainer and I stocked it up to, all right, today's a day that we'll just sit and have coffee and catch up. So she came into the house, and that was that. So about an hour and a half later, she's leaving, in the time that I would have been riding. I walk her out and see if my horses have calmed down. And they had, but all of a sudden Kelly comes riding up, and she said, walking her horse. And I said, did you come off? And she said, no, but I thought I was going to, and so I got off and I've walked him back. She said, I was 2 miles away. I knew where she was. It was miles away. Through the thickest woods on the planet. The thickest woods on the planet. She said, yeah, he started freaking out. I said, what time? And it was exactly the same time that I was supposed to have my lesson, 10 o'clock. So her horse was feeling into, my suspicion, and based on what they showed me, a bear wandered through the property, and it just unzipped everybody out of their horse suit. So, yeah. Whoop, wah. So anyway, so he connected to that extreme fear and that circumstance that all the other horses were going through. And that sort of thing happens all the time. But that's, that I was able to say, what time? So I love things like that because, we always love these stories that create proof. Has anyone said anything?
No, people are enthralled.
Okay. All right, good. Getting back to the idea, well, first I want to talk a little bit about echolocation. So, when I was researching this, and not everything ended up in the book, right? So I wrote lots of stuff about the dolphins and echolocation. And I had an evening. So what I started doing every night, I started playing with echolocation, and I had each of the stalls that I had down in the barn had really big paddocks off of them, and that were dry, so that Seattle mud. Anyway, it was a nice setup, and there were the paddocks. If this wall weren't here, were the size of at least almost this whole house. I mean, each horse had a big paddock. So Raleigh, my horse at the time that I lost about 3 years ago, he was very dark. So you couldn't, the night in Seattle, if it wasn't a full moon, was dark. I mean, dark. I'm always blown away at evenings in the desert here where I can see forever. But I mean, I couldn't. It was dark, 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 dark. So what I started doing on my late night check-in was I'd bring everybody their little nightcap and their little yummy something, especially if it was really cold, to keep them warm and eating. And that I would close my eyes and stand in his doorway from the stall out to the paddock, and I would slowly walk to where I felt he was. And most of the time I walked right into him. But there were one or two times that I would bump into a fence and he'd look at me like, "You dumbass." You are so far away. But it became really, really fun. One night, this was the craziest. A bat bumped into me. And I'm like, wow, all right, I'm not the only one who's off here. There must be something going on with the echo. A bat! They're like the king of echolocation. And they're bumped right into me. Like literally hit me in the third eye. So anyway, that was really fun for me to do because I felt like, I know we've had this. I mean, now we call it our third eye, right? But I know at some point we all were connected in that way. I know I've been a dolphin before, so I know I can do this. And I literally practiced it and practiced it and practiced it. And it's fun to do. Like if you have something that has a different energy, like if you can get an animal to sit in a room, have somebody set it up for you, and then just see if you're walking to that energy. It's a pretty incredible intuitive exercise, and I can't say enough about it. But anyway, that's the fun I had writing this book. So going back to the one mind, we talked about that in the last book club with communication with all life, and it's that one mind that we tap into of spirit, the universe, but also each other. And it's a very powerful place to be. And I often talk about, I talked a lot this last weekend about morphic resonance, because when we're really in a space where we understand that field of energy, that interconnectedness, we can notice that our household is its own morphic resonance or ecosystem. And I talk about in here that what I love to say, you know how our bodies have a pH and waters have a pH, the potential for hydrogen. I like to call it the pH of the household, the potential for harmony. And when we have a set point of harmony in our household, we can really create harmony, and also allow for individuals to be autonomous and to have their own experience, but also to be connected to us in a way that it's automatic that something's going on. I had a situation where one time I had a house sitter set up to be at the house, and I kept checking in and kept checking in and kept checking in. And this was actually on my way to do my TEDx talk. And, she had the dates, we had texted back and forth. I got all the way to where I was going, to Delaware, and I felt my animals. There was no one here. And I started making phone calls and got someone here. But you know what I mean? Like when you're that tuned in, it was, I had all the things of the flight and then getting some food, and all my logic was at work. All my logic was at work to get me from, plane to cab to hotel to all the steps. But when I was sitting, when I finally sat down, I knew. And so those are the sorts of things that we can really build up in ourselves, of like being in that energy. So, and it's also really looking at how they operate together. They may operate in a way that you're not even thinking of operating. And if we go down to just the brass tacks of what, when you start to say, all right, I'm going to set up harmony, I'm going to really create this in my household, but what does that really mean? So for me, it means that my dogs and cats and horses all get along and love each other and have their own relationships that have nothing to do with me, and that is a joyful experience for them. And that means for me also that if something happened to me, that my animals have a sense of confidence and safety within themselves, that they are, and it's a work in progress with the dogs. But if something were to happen to me, my goal is that my animals would be fine. And it's a weird thing to say, but, I don't want them, I think they'd be really sad if I died tomorrow, but they'd be fine. And to me, that's like building up them as beings in who they are, that it's not dependent on me. So then, but the thing that we share deep emotions, but we also, the simplicity of that for them is really shouldn't be overlooked, right? What we share with all animals is we share a sense of caring, we share a sense of big, deep feelings like grief, things like that. We also share a need for shelter. We share a need for food. We share lust, although with our dogs and cats, we've spayed and neutered them. So it really comes down to a sense of we share safety. We share a need to feel safe in what we're doing. And so when we think in terms of creating safety for our animals... Hi, Abby. Can you see Abby?
No.
Okay. Abby came to say hi, and she said, I am safe. I am safe. And I have a cute dog. Oh, a lot of dirt just came flying. Probably saw the dirt. She laid in the dirt on her hike today. Anyway, yeah, she was just like all rolling. Anyway, so when we set about to set up safety, harmony, things like that, we're creating a whole different way of being, and we're stepping into the role of emotional leader. And when we go back to the idea that every herd, every pride, every pack, every flock, they have a leader. And I don't, a lot of times what I found in the 90s was that, there was all this stuff about the alpha. And I found that a lot of my clients, particularly women, didn't feel comfortable with that word alpha. So I thought, well, I really spent a lot of time looking at like how much, like this house is a multi-species pack and pride, right? Or colony. So it's its own thing. It's a family, and that the family needs a certain leader. So when I thought through the idea that animals have their sole survival is based on their fear, their ability to take off in a fight or flight, and particularly animals that are prey. So our horses, our other, animals that donkeys are. I want a donkey. I feel a donkey coming into my field of energy. Anyway, all of our animals that are prey are in particular more inclined to fight or flight. And so if their world is based on emotion, I thought, well, we should be emotional leaders. That emotional leadership is what is required to kind of send that ship down the way, to keep the captain of our home, our ship. So that's where that came up, and so I really I feel like there's a lot we can learn from just a lot we can learn from observing our own homes, and there's a lot that we can feel into the vibration of our own animals. And then eventually, if you think about amorphic resonance or our home being its own ecosystem, that has its own emotional kind of code, its own resonance, its own, I say it's got its own frequency signature out in the universe. It's got its own intelligence. And so, like, for example, when I feel into that thing that, oh, there's no house sitter, my animals don't have a sense of fear because they operate from harmony. But it's like an alert as opposed to a panic. And that's a really important thing, to be able to create that level of safety for your animals, so that if there is something wrong, I can step in with my logic and recreate the safety that needs to happen. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Is anybody commenting? Is anybody there?
Yeah. We have 56 people watching.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, and I don't even know what time it is.
It's 10:30.
Okay.
10:37.
10:37?
10:39, sorry.
10:39, wow.
We started 2 minutes late.
Okay. Well, so, is any of this making sense?
Yes.
Does anybody have any questions?
We'll give them a minute.
Yeah. Do you have any questions?
Me?
Yeah, you've heard me say it.
You just made me remember something that happened to me. This is before I was even aware about animal communication. I was in Mexico visiting my mom, and I had a really bad feeling. And I called, at the time he was my boyfriend, my husband now, and I said, what's wrong with the dogs? And one of my dogs was really sick. He'd just taken a turn. He had a seizure disorder. He had taken a turn for the worse. And I cut my trip short. I flew back and we had to put him down because he took a really bad, he's like, how did you know? And I said, I just woke up. I felt like I couldn't breathe and I knew something was wrong with my animals.
Yeah, I mean, this
is before I knew any of this.
And before you became a mom and had
before any of that. I mean, my spidey sense was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember that. You made me remember that right now. And wait, that happened to me.
Yeah, I mean, we've all had it. And there's times when, like I said, we walk through, we don't see, I mean, I can see pretty well here because it's so open. But still, there's blocks of trees and stuff. I could walk through a coyote's fear. You know what I mean? I could walk through, and we have to remember that wildlife is more afraid of us than we are of them. And we can catch them off guard. And they can go into that, and that's why I move really slowly out there on my, I move very carefully. And, I don't love that my dogs chase things. In fact, had that leash set that I got, and one of the things I loved about it was, so somebody gave me, this was really cool. Actually, if you want to talk about feeling like a unit, and I've been using it. I didn't want to get all the gear up today, but you know the ski joring where you're connected to your dog, and they basically pull you. They, I was given a set connected. The piece for the human that connects to the dogs, and then they've got these really cool harnesses, and they just look cool. And anyway, it's funny how I love this thing for 3,000 reasons, and I'm going to do it again on Thursday morning on my hike because I don't want them chasing things. I loved it because in the summer it was so hot that I have to go so early, and that's really when the packs of coyotes are still out there and should be. And I'm walking into their yard. So at least with my animals connected to me, I could, I'm keeping them safe. And then I can feel, and we have to feel each other. We are feeling each other because it's right there connected. That fanny pack thing is connected right to your second chakra, your relationships with them. So I could feel them, and then also they're connected to me, so they couldn't just chase Abby. Delilah's the worst if there's a bird.
Oh yeah, her
Yeah.
instinct, yeah.
So I can stop them from chasing things. So anyway, it's, as much as I love having a free romp out in the wilderness, I just, keeping everybody safe, including little bunnies, is important. That reminds me, in the old days, talk about, at my old farm, Olivia and Isabella created a game that they taught Delilah with the ravens. So every morning when I would walk out my front door to feed the horses early in the morning, the ravens would be like either drinking water from... I finally gave the ravens their own thing because in enough animal communication classes, Anya told every group every time that she wanted clean water. So I finally put a raven water thing next to Anya's because they liked that location apparently. So anyway, the ravens had their own water thing, tank, and they used to leave me gifts too, but that's another story. So anyway. They actually re-gifted a dog bone into the water thing, but they often left me French bread that they obviously had gotten from the local grocery store, so they left me something every day. But they had a game with the dogs, and that was the dogs would come running down and they would fly so low that the dogs could almost get their tail, almost get their tail, and then by the time they got to the other side of the pasture, just took off. So Delilah is expecting that ravens in particular are going to play this game with her, and they don't. But these guys every day, like, just hovered right above the grass and then take off. It was amazing. Yeah. Any questions? No questions?
No, I'm shocked.
Wow. Was I that clear? Anyway, I think that, as we start to get into more things as we go and talk about different energy healings, I think it's a really, 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 really fun thing to do, to start to look around at your own animal's energy and be able to... And I mean, of course, it's really fun to feel into the energy, like to feel into that hawk energy this morning. And we were in complete communion. And I just didn't have a good camera, but I got plenty of pictures. And I literally, he waited for me to get up the hill, so we were eye to eye. I just had a crazy great reminder just this morning of the power of that connection and observance, and but it's fun to, when you can start to feel into your own animals in that way and really observe and feel into your morphic resonance, to feel into your household, you're communicating at an even better way than animal communication, because you know automatically when something is up. You know when a good example is when we lost Isabella 2 years ago. I could feel I could feel when Henry was grieving more, and when Delilah was coming out of it, when Abby was grieving, when they knew when I was grieving, and we didn't have to do anything. We could just let each other be and recognize that this is what we're just all going through. So it allows everybody to be who they are and what they need to be. So anyway, that's that. And it's does that make sense?
Yeah.
And you feel that now in your household, right?
Yeah. It's I was just thinking that yesterday, how much the energy has changed in my house since I started doing all this.
One of the newer people in the big program, Stevie, did you see her post in the Facebook group?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
The bee.
yeah, so Stevie was sitting out in her yard, and her dog came flying out and was shaking his head, and it's a new dog, and she heard the word bee, and she thought she was crazy, but she followed through, and her friend was in the house with her other dog, and she came in and said, "Was there a bee in here?" And her friend said, "Yeah, we just came into this room because there's a bee in the other room." So the dog got stung. Something, yeah, anyway. So those sorts of things, like, I mean, the people that really want to learn animal communication for your own animals. Oh my God, she's in the cat bed. A dog in the cat bed. Actually, that's how little Abby was. That was Abby's baby bed. Feeling into this is step one of being able to do this on a big level. So anyway, that is that. And I've got lots of things coming up. We have the intensive, and I think we're almost full. I think we might have one person left. We have one room for one more person. We've got the Animal Communication Level 1 coming up, and that's on Wednesdays at either 11 a.m. or 5 p.m. And that class is really fun, and it's 12 weeks, and it's a few of them are taught by me, but several are taught by my faculty and my methods. And what was that class like for you, Claudia?
The 12-week?
Yeah.
It was, the way I look at it, it was the foundation that I needed to be able to do what I'm doing now and to be able to get to the connections that I'm getting now. I wouldn't have been able to do what I'm doing without it. And the community itself, I underestimated how much being a part of a community like that could help, especially when you start to doubt yourself.
Yeah, because now you have all new friends, and you understand, like, they got it. You can
but
connect
the
with
classes
each other.
Themselves
Yeah.
were kind of brought me. It's kind of like bringing you back to
center.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
And the thing that I love about that class also is that people get really good in that class. It sets you up then if you want to go more advanced and to being part of, like, we've got some tough. Today is advanced for the people in the big program, and we have a medical intuition for the morning class, and then the evening class we have a challenge with a horse. And so having those basics, you don't second guess yourself when you get to more advanced work, like helping people through their challenges. And so it's really important to be able to have that foundation under your belt. I have 2 spots left in the White Lion trip. And then I'm just putting together, oh my God.
Oh, this is the one I want to go on. I want to go to the White Lions, but I can't.
My May Tigers in India trip is like, my mouth waters when I look at the pictures of what the people sent me. It's going to some of the most amazing um, temples and caves. So it's going to have this like high frequency, meditative, like delicious feeling of connecting into this ancient technology of these masters that have lived in these places. And then taking that high vibration into the jungle and seeing tigers.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's 3 different parks where we'll be. There's other wildlife that we'll see. But this is like, yeah, there's elephants, there's everything. So anyway,
I'm glad they can't see me because I'm squirming.
yeah. So that I've been trying to put that trip together for a few years. And I've had it anyway. Who cares? It's here now, and it's May 1st. It's longer. It's May 1st through the 18th, and so we're just kind of getting the information together. The 18th is the last day we fly back from. Yeah, and it's going to the Taj Mahal. It's going to all the hot spots, but it's yeah, it's I can hardly even talk about it. So anyway, we have some really cool stuff coming up. The Animal Communication Level 1 starting on October 23rd, and the intensive, the White Lion, and that. And then we also have an Energy Healing for Animals home study course starting in November. And that people get very good at tapping and learn the scalar wave and work through, looking at all the chakras and all of that. So it's a very rich. Is it a rich class?
Oh my god, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
I love. Yeah, and that I teach. Yeah, and I teach a lot of the animal communication home study course. Don't get me wrong, level 1, and I do Q&As, and it's pretty fun. It's really fun. They're both fun. I love my day job. So anyway, that's that. Do I have anything else that I have coming up? Okay. All right. So hopefully I will. I'll see you next week, and I'll be back on Thursday for a few minutes just to talk about any questions people have. And but the book club, this has been really fun. I love that I really had this moment this morning out there with the hawk and some other birds and a few ravens. And actually, when you drove up this morning, I had a raven that had just flown over, and we were doing our crazy calls to each other. So anyway, thank you for joining, and I'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.